Hey guys, welcome. This is going to be a little bit different than my typical videos, flying videos. I wanted to do a quick, we can call it a tutorial if you want. I use that term lightly. I do not by any means have the knowledge or experience with this simulator to be teaching people how to do things in it. But one of the things that I have gotten a lot of questions and comments about in some of my videos so far is when I communicate with ATC in the game, and I do it verbally rather than the AI pilot voice talking back to the uh, to the AI ATC in the game. And so first I'll preface that with it's not understanding what I'm saying, so I don't want anybody to think that what I'm going to show you how to do here is going to make the software understand what you are saying and, know that the words that you say is like a command to it. All I'm simply doing is taking the AI pilot voice that typically reads back and communicates to the AI ATC. I'm simply taking that out so that I can then just do it myself. And essentially, the reason I started doing this was I'm wanting to start flying on the VATSIM network. And when I started doing this 6 months ago, I had no experience whatsoever with talking to ATC or what to say or how to say it or anything like that. And so what I wanted to do was just fly as much as I could on here. And the AI ATC, for as bad as it is, it's good. I mean, it gives you experience, and it does say pretty close to what I understand, and from listening to VATSIM transmissions, I mean, it's pretty close to realistic in the sense of it's good enough, I guess, at that point if you want to get started in trying to understand ATC and be able to speak it on your own rather than just let it go through the game and then eventually work your way into something like the VATSIM network where you are talking with real humans and real air traffic controllers within the simulator. And, doing that just takes this whole flight simulator and this game to a whole new level, in my opinion, at that point. So, what I wanted to do real quick, I'm trying to make this not long at all, if possible, is just show you how I basically removed the voices from the uh, from the simulator, the pilot voices. So I spawned in here because we will hop into the cockpit and I'll fire it up and just kind of show you how it works. But the first step you'd want to do when you're outside of the simulator and don't have it open is you'll want to navigate to your or this specific folder I'm going to show you. It's FS-base is the name of the folder. Now this could be different depending on what version of the game you have installed. So if you have Steam or if you bought it from the Microsoft Store, it could be different. The name of the folder should be the same, but it could be different to get to the location. So you may not want to take exactly what I have here and use it as your guide, unless I guess if you got the game off Steam, because that's what I did. So that's what this is going to show you. If you got it off Microsoft, your path to get to that folder may be a little different. And I apologize, I don't know what that exact path would be, but once you get into the Microsoft Flight Simulator folder, it should be pretty much the same after that. So right now for me though, from your local drive, basically you go to your users folder and then you go into a folder called app data, and then from there is a roaming folder, and then Microsoft Flight Simulator, packages, official, and then the Steam folder. And then once you're in the Steam folder, should be in alphabetical order. So, you'll see this huge list of folders. What you want to do is scroll and find the FS base folder. And again, there's a bunch of them with extra things on it. You just want the FS-base. And if you open that folder, once inside, you'll see a whole bunch of other folders here. And then you'll see some of these files down here, a lockpack file. No clue what it is whatsoever. I will preface this with, about 6 months ago, I thought about this, like, how can I turn off those voices? So I started Googling, and I was able to find a message board post. I'm going to try and find it before I post this video and put it in the description to give that person all the credit, obviously, for figuring this out. But I found a message board post where someone wanted to do something similar. They wanted to disable the voices of the pilot reading instructions back to ATC. And so that's where I learned how to do this from. And before I start showing you here again, I'll say you're going to be messing with these core files. Like you're in the official, application files at this point. So before we get into this file that houses what we're going to remove from it, always make a copy of it, because then if something goes wrong, you can at least grab that copy, paste it back in, and then everything should work fine. And as long as you do exactly what I show on here, it shouldn't have any other effect whatsoever on your simulator other than just removing the pilot voices from the ATC. I've noticed nothing different with it, no performance issues, no other part of the game, as far as I know, is affected by it. But like I said, make a copy of this folder that we're going to go into, or this file we're going to go into first, just in case something messes up for you. You can just put the old one back and everything should be back to normal. So once you're in the FS base folder, you're going to scroll down here and it's going to be this file called speakers. So you can just double click, or I wouldn't double click it to open it because it's going to tell you it doesn't know how to open it. I just go ahead and right click on it. Again, this is if you're on a PC, but go to open with, and then just Notepad or WordPad, one of those will work. And so I already have them open. I'm just going to drag them over here. I have 2 files actually for it. So it's basically just going to open it up, a bunch of code in the file. So this is it right now, this one on the right side, the speakers file. This is how mine looks right now because I have it removed. This is the original file that I had. And again, I just took this, copied and pasted it to my desktop, titled it that it was the original speakers file. That way I know if I ever need to put it back, I can just go drop it back in. Side note, if you do ever do that, make sure that you then title it back to just the original file name of speakers so that it works, not original speakers lockback file. But that's just how I kept it on my desktop to identify it. But basically, you're going to scroll down and look for the name pilot. And basically it looks like these are all, I think what this is just a file of all of the characters, quote unquote characters in the game. So you've got like the ATC voices here, co-pilot voices, narrator, never heard of narrator, but okay, maybe that's in some of the other modes. Crew leader, that sort of thing. But yeah, so then instructor, but you want to find pilot. And then I also did co-pilot on mine because sometimes, depending on the plane, I think, or also your settings, if you have your co-pilot or the flight, what do they call that? The flight director that you can turn on to do a lot of the stuff for you. If you have that doing ATC, sometimes that voice, I think, falls under co-pilot, so you'll continue to hear it talk. So I just removed pilot and co-pilot just to be safe. But basically, once you have these here, you're going to want to remove essentially these 4 lines that I have highlighted: the name, gender, age, and output bus. So if you look over here at the speakers folder on the right side, this is my current folder. And if I scroll down there, you'll see after instructor, you don't see pilot and all that because I have deleted that. So really the only thing now left is the is human down to language voices. Now, maybe it only takes one of these lines to remove it, maybe output bus. I don't know. I just followed what I saw on that guy's message board post. And again, maybe you don't need to delete it. Maybe you just need to change something on it. If you know coding and you know how all that works, by all means, you do you, or maybe leave something in the comments, if there's a better way to do this. But in the instructions I found in that message board, he said just take those 4 lines and delete them. And so you can see that's what I did over here. You want to make sure not to, remove any of these brackets. Those are obviously really important. In the end, basically that open bracket here and this closed bracket here encompasses everything in the middle here. So when you do delete these top 4 lines, you'll want to make sure then that this is still within 2 brackets, and you can see right there it is. You got the top one and the bottom one here, and then we got everything in the middle. You'll want to make sure you get this comma at the end because each one of these sets here is broken up with a comma. So if you were to, grab the first line here and then delete to there and you still leave the comma out here, it's probably going to give you an error or cause something to crash or fail because that's not a complete line of code at that point. So you just want to make sure you grab from the beginning quotations on name to that last comma after VO pilot. So you delete that out. So it's gone there. And then, like I said, I went back up to, I think Copilot was near the top. Yeah, here it was here. So if you scroll up on the left side, there's Copilot. Those 4 lines, I just deleted out. So you can see over here, it picks up with the is human line and then has those other 4. Those are the only 2 I touched. So at that point, then if you're in that speakers file, you've already made your copy and saved it out to the desktop. Now you're in the actual file. You've made the deletions. Then you just do a file save. And it's going to save it then. You'll just see that this speakers file now remains, and it's probably updated with the newest date. So, but then that's all you do. And so again, you want to do this with the simulator closed, so that you're you don't have the simulator running while you're doing this. That may cause an issue. I don't know, but obviously, you would have to restart it anyway for this stuff to take effect. So, so you make those changes, and then go into the simulator, start a flight just like normal. Here we are. We spawned in at Aspen, so we'll hop into the cockpit of the Longitude here, and I'm going to go ahead and start it, just at least get the battery up so that we can get the ATC going. So I'm going to start the battery, and we'll go ahead and just external power, just so we don't run out of juice. So I'm going to pull the ATC window over here so that we can see it. And so you can see, like, obviously the first thing you'd probably want to do is grab the ATIS. So you still have to, interact with the ATC window. So like if you want to get the ATIS, you have to either click it here if you're doing it this way, or if you use the actual touchpad down here in the Longitude, you would go down there and dial it in. If you have a like a Logitech radio panel, I have one of those here, you would dial it in there, and then make it the active frequency, whatever you want to do. This is all still kind of the same here. So you could tune in the ATIS if you want. We don't actually communicate with the ATIS, but I'll do it here just so that you can see it's still working. I mean, you still hear the audio from the ATC. So I'm going to go back to clearance, or go to ground, sorry. And then, do they actually have a... thought they were towered here in Aspen. Shoot, did I pick one that we're not even going to have? I can't even request an oh, you know what? I didn't pick an IFR flight plan. Shoot. Let me just do that real quick. Okay, so we are back in Longitude now. I went ahead and filed an IFR flight plan from the main screen there to, I think it was Telluride. So we're at Aspen. We're going to be going to Telluride. So we've already picked up the ATIS. We listened to that. Now we're ready to request our IFR flight clearance. So typically you would click this button, and then you would hear the pilot's voice, and you would see the pilot text come up here of your AI pilot asking for the IFR flight clearance to Telluride. Not only did we remove you being able to hear the voice of the pilot saying it, you're also not going to see the text up there. So twofold, this is good and bad, I guess. It was good for me because then I was able to have to kind of learn what to say and kind of memorize it. I mean, basically, you're going for repetition. The more you repeat this, the more it's going to burn into your brain, and it's going to get easier to go. Trust me, I thought when I started this, I'm not going to remember any of this or what to say. Once you do it 5 times and do 5 flights, it's going to start to burn in because you're going to say a lot of the same things over and over again. That said, this is really, when you request your initial IFR clearance, really one of the only times in this where you're just going to have to know what to say, because then it's going to be a lot of repeating what the ATC says, and you can see what they say on the screen here. So, typically you'll want to write down, when you hear a clearance, what you're cleared to, your altitude, the departure frequency, your squawk code. You'd want to write all that down. Obviously, it is going to show up in the box here, so not really necessary to do that. You can kind of see it from there and be able to read back. And then all of the other transmissions going forward, when ATC, has you tuned to a departure, a different frequency, you'll see that frequency in the box there. And so that's what's kind of nice. That this initial IFR clearance is the only time you're not going to basically have something on there of what you're supposed to say. So what I'm going to say here again is just, all you're doing is requesting IFR clearance to whatever your destination is. And so it's not too hard to learn. But so I'm going to go ahead and give you an example here. So once I've started up and I'm ready to get this IFR clearance, basically just to, get a sense of realism with what you're doing, you would just start to request that clearance. So I'm going to do that now. Cessna November 316 Bravo Papa requesting IFR clearance to Telluride. And then you would typically say with information, whatever the ATIS was. So I say that. And again, now that I've said it, the computer AI has no idea that I've said anything. It's not like your voice is triggering anything. You're just saying it for your own realism and your own practice. Once you say it, typically I give it about a second or two after I say it to kind of make it realistic, for them to actually communicate back and not just have it be, instantaneous. But so you say it, wait about a second, and then you go ahead and click the button like you just did it, and they're going to communicate back to you.
Cessna November 316 Bravo Papa is cleared to Kilo Tango Echo X-ray Airport as filed. Takeoff runway tree climb and maintain 16,000 feet. Departure frequency is 123.8 squawk tree 737.
Now, here's where you have to be quick with it. I'm going to go ahead and read it back, and then I'm going to explain you why. Cleared to Telluride Airport is filed. Takeoff runway 33, climb and maintain 16,000. Departure 23.8, squawk 3737, 6 Bravo Papa. That would be why you want to do it quickly. Because if you don't click this read back acknowledge IFR clearance button, it's going to think that you didn't. I'm going to let it finish and I'll tell you. Okay. So when they give you that initial clearance, you have to be ready to then read it back fairly quickly, because typically what you're going to do before you took out the ATC pilot voice is you would have just clicked acknowledge clearance. He would have read it back, and then they would have read back, that your read back was correct. As soon as they finish talking, they're expecting you to click that button within about 10 or 15 seconds. If you don't, it's going to come in with what it just did, where it said, did you acknowledge my last transmission? Which, not a big deal, but it just kind of breaks the immersion a little bit. So you kind of learn how to be pretty quick with the responding to them, and then making sure you click the button, just so you don't get those did you acknowledge my last transmission messages. So when they read it off to me, again, like I told you, you've got it written down here. This would be the same as if you wrote it down as they were telling it to you. So you've got it noted here. So then you're just kind of starting to repeat what they said. I'm not going to get into a whole tutorial on, how to say things back or what the lingo is you should use. This is basically just to show you how you can say it back without having the automated pilot voice be talking over you or, in conjunction with you and all that kind of stuff. So basically, they gave you the clearance, you would have read it back, and as soon as you finished, then you would have clicked the button saying you acknowledge, and then they would have said right after that your read back was correct, and now they tell you to contact ground, and then you kind of finish going through, you go ahead and start up your engines and do all that kind of stuff. So we'll go ahead and contact ground, because that's going to be for our taxi clearance. So you would tune into ground however you want to do it, whether you want to do it on the panels down there or on another peripheral that you have. But here I'll just click it. So we tune to the ground frequency. And now we're going to request our taxi IFR. So I guess this would be the second time where you actually have to say something that's not, written down for you already. But again, all you're saying is that you're ready for taxi. So you're going to say Aspen Ground Cessna November 316 Bravo Papa is ready to taxi. And as soon as I finish it, wait about a second, click it. Now you're going to have to be quick again and read back. Sometimes these can get confusing because they're horrible with their AI taxi instructions, but I usually just read it back just for the sake of it. Taxi and hold short of runway 33 using taxiway Alpha 9, tower 1885, 6 Bravo Papa. And then go ahead and click it. And that's how you can get through it without it popping back up and saying, did you acknowledge my last transmission or anything like that. The reason the taxi ones are hit and miss is because if you've played this game and you actually look at like Navigraph charts of taxiways, half the time what they tell you is not accurate at all. And then sometimes if you're at a big airport, they could go on with about 15 different instructions of different taxiways to take. And so if you've seen some of my videos, sometimes I'll respond to it, sometimes I won't, because it just starts to get ridiculous at one point. But yeah, so you would do that. I'm not going to take off and fly around because we're already at 15, 20-minute video at this point. I don't want to go much longer than that. But right now we would be ready to taxi, so we would taxi to the runway, and once we stop and hold short of runway 33, then we're going to tune in the tower and basically request our takeoff clearance. And so it'll be the same way. You'll tune to your tower frequency, And then it's not going to give me the option because I'm not sitting short of the runway. It'll recognize if you're actually short of the runway. But once you get up there, you would say Cessna November 316 Bravo Papa holding short of runway 33 ready for takeoff. And then there would be a button down here that says request IFR takeoff clearance or request takeoff clearance or something along those lines. So you would say your little spiel, push the button, it would pop up and give you the altimeter reading and the wind, and then say cleared for takeoff runway 33. And then there would be an acknowledge button again. So before you click the button, you would just say cleared for takeoff runway 33, 6 Bravo Papa, and then click the button. That's basically the long and short of it. Once you're in the air at that point, there'll be a bunch of climb and maintain, descend and maintain, switch over to a different frequency, all of that sort of stuff. And it's just the exact same way. You just watch the ATC window and whatever instruction they give you. Sometimes it's like a switch over to a different, a frequency it does require you to hit acknowledge. So I'm trying to think if there's one that doesn't require you to say anything. I think they're pretty much everything they're going to tell you, it is going to pop up and give you an option to acknowledge what they just said or whatever. And so, but you'll just learn to basically repeat, you actually say the command or the response to whatever command it is they just gave you. And then you just click the button to let the computer know that you actually acknowledged it. And really, that's it. If you get into a flow with it, if you watch some of my videos, it really does, other than the fact that you can obviously tell it's an AI ATC from the game. I mean, you can really get into a flow with it to where it does sound like if somebody were listening and had no idea, just assume that ATC sounded like a robot like that you're actually communicating with them, and based on what you're saying and that sort of thing, it's understanding the words you're saying, which, as you know from just watching this now, that it's not like that at all. This is all simply just, you're basically removing audio from the game so that you can replace it with your own voice, and then you just click the buttons to acknowledge certain things, and it makes it feel like then that you're communicating with them through you and not through the AI pilot voice and that sort of thing. So that is basically it. I think I hit everything I wanted to. Like I said, usually in my live streams or in some of my videos, a lot of people ask the questions about, how are you communicating with ATC that way? That's simply all I'm doing. And again, it just adds a sense of realism to it. If you like flying with the computer ATC, if you're wanting to get into something like VATSIM and, you don't know anything about it and you want to kind of get some practice with actually being able to say it and that sort of thing, I highly recommend this. Like I said, I've been doing this for a couple of months now, and I'm going to jump over to the VATSIM network here within the next few days because I feel like I'm to the point where I think I can, hopefully get on there and not completely embarrass myself. But I think this would be handy for a lot of people if they want to, kind of brush up on their ability to talk to ATC and not have to do it, I've seen some videos where people do exactly what I'm doing, where they actually repeat the command, but they're sitting there having to talk over the AI pilot voice, and it gets annoying after a while, if you're trying to do it and you got this voice popping up. I've seen people try and turn the volume down on their speakers while the pilot voice is saying it so that they can say it, but then you got to turn them back up again to try and hear the computer ATC when they say something back to you, and it just starts to get annoying. Easiest way I've found, just take the voice out of it altogether. So, the only other issue with this is if you're flying with AI traffic on or multiplayer, traffic where the AI ATC is actually talking to other flights around there, it'll start stepping on you when it'll give you a command and it doesn't give you time to hit the button to say what you need to say. It may hop over and go straight to another transmission to another aircraft at that point. So you got to kind of wait and try and click the button as soon as you can. Or it may give you a command and then you start to read it back, like you would, like we've just done here. But then all of a sudden it starts communicating with somebody else. And so right in the middle of what you're saying, it hops over and, starts communicating with a different aircraft. That kind of breaks the immersion. If you really want to get good at it and just practice, turn off all the AI traffic and multiplayer traffic and just fly by yourself with the ATC. And then the only transmissions it's going to make are directly to you. And so you don't have to worry about stepping on other aircraft or them talking over you or yada, yada, yada. And again, that's all the AI stuff talking over you. Obviously, no other players are actually saying, things into it. It's that only happens on like VATSIM and stuff where you can actually hear real people on the other end of it. But if you have multiplayer mode on and there is somebody flying that other aircraft and they're just over here clicking the ATC commands, like everybody else is, that's where I say, they could start saying things that then step on your transmissions, and it gets a little confusing and annoying at that point. So my recommendation, finally, I need to wrap this up, I know, I'm sorry, is if you want to learn how to communicate with ATC, get better at it, practice with it, go in, shut off all the traffic in the game so it's just you flying, and then go in and remove the pilot voices just like I showed you at the beginning of the video here, and then start flying and have your ATC window open while you're flying, and then as you start to get the commands and stuff from the ATC, then just verbally respond to them while clicking the buttons and stuff, kind of like we've just done in this video. And I think it'll really help. It's helped me a ton. So if you have any questions or if I missed anything, leave it in the comments. I'll read through them and answer them as best as I can. And again, I can't stress more than enough, that initial file, that speakers file that we were talking about, make a copy of it once you finally navigate to it before you ever open it or anything. Make a copy, put it on your desktop. That way you have a backup just in case something gets messed up or you delete something and you can't remember what it was supposed to be. You can just drop in that replacement folder and still be good to go at that point. So, all right, that is it. Thanks for watching, and yeah, check out my channel if you guys want some examples of me doing this. I do it in all my live stream. Every video that's up there, I use this kind of ATC communication. So check those out if you want to see it in action. Otherwise, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you later.